in their homes. It would remove the bank veto, and it would create an independent mortgage resolution office, and it would create balance for the first time between lenders and borrowers. And I would like to acknowledge the huge work done by Deputy Michael McGrath, and indeed recognise support from right across the opposition benches for this bill. Now, Minister, some version of this bill should have been put in place by your government, by the Fine Gael Labour government, years ago. I raised it several times. Deputy Michael McGrath raised it several times. Deputy Pearse Doherty raised it several times. This has been raised again and again and again. And every time it's been raised, Fine Gael has stood up with the same defence. We can't do this because we have to protect the private property rights of the banks. We've heard it again and again and again. So, Minister, when the government put its hands into people's private pension funds, what of the private property rights of the owners of those pension funds? When the government levied taxes upon taxes on people to recapitalise the banks, to pay the debts of the banks, what about the private property rights of the citizens then? When the government took the mortgages of homes of tens of thousands of Irish families and sold those mortgages to vulture funds from America who weren't even paying any bloody taxes on their profits, what of the private property rights of those families? So, when it came to the state bailing out the banks and paying down their debts, there was no talk of private property rights. When it came to the government delving into private pension funds, there was no talk of private property rights. When it came to selling Irish families down the river to foreign vulture funds, there was no talk of private property rights. But God forbid a piece of legislation would be introduced in this country that gave some rights to borrowers, well, suddenly it's against the Constitution. Suddenly we can't do anything for the last 10 years because of the private property rights of the banks. It's outrageous. And it needs to be stopped. Now, the other spurious position put forward by the Minister was that this would damage new lending. But as anyone involved in financial services knows, one of the things that is holding up lending is these legacy debts of the banks. And one of the things that's stopping that being cleared up is a decent process with balanced powers between borrowers and lenders. And indeed, Minister, your colleague Minister Flanagan, in his rebuttal of Michael McGrath and Fianna Fáil's bill, cited the Insolvency Act. Fine Gael Labour amended the Insolvency Act in 2015. Section 115A of the Insolvency Act gives the courts today, under limited circumstances, the power to take away the bank veto. Yet when it is proposed by Fianna Fáil, suddenly it can't be done because it is repugnant to the Constitution. So, Minister, 10 years after the mortgage crisis, 10 years, every deputy in this House has been dealing with individuals and families trying to hang on by their fingernails. It beggars belief that the government maintains the line, we can't remove the bank veto because of the private property rights of the banks. Thank you, Lascia Corla.
10 minutes.
Thanks very much, Les Cahilloch. On behalf of the Minister for Justice, I want to thank deputies for their contributions during this debate, and I'll make a few comments on that debate in a few moments. The Government is proposing that the House decline a second reading to the bill introduced by Deputy McGrath because, first of all, the approach proposed in the bill is oversimplistic and risks creating a range of serious negative effects for homeowners in mortgage arrears. The bill is not fully thought out on fundamental issues. It would create extensive legal uncertainty and lead to a